morning, and welcome to the Stylo News Intelligence Update for June 15th, 2026. I'm your host. Today, we're zeroing in on a critical region where shifting military fronts and diplomatic maneuvering are colliding head-on. Think of this program as your early morning intelligence briefing, a concise, fact-driven explainer designed to give you a clear, neutral overview of the forces reshaping the Middle East today, right before you tune in to our full morning analysis. Before we dive into the data, a quick note that this briefing is powered by ProWave AI. They're the developers behind Stylo Intel Ops. That's the AI-powered open-source intelligence program giving us the raw data to navigate today's strategic landscape. They also bring us Stylo News, the commercial platform you can find on the web and on mobile apps. All right, let's look at today's agenda. We'll start with a broad regional strategic overview, then move down to the tactical realities on the Levant front, specifically Gaza and Lebanon. From there, we'll sweep south and east to the maritime fronts of Yemen and the Strait of Hormuz. We'll follow that up by examining the global impacts, checking the open source sentiment, and finally, laying out our near-term outlook. First up, Section 1, our regional strategic overview, where we outline the core lines of analysis. To really understand the headlines, we have to answer three key strategic questions. First, looking at Iran and its regional partners, like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, can they preserve their military capabilities and impose costs through missiles, drones, and proxy operations? Second, for the United States and its partners, can they effectively degrade those capabilities, restore deterrence, and actually force a return to meaningful diplomacy? And third, looking at Israel, can they protect their population and infrastructure while trying to shape conditions for a sustainable peace? You see, these aren't just isolated tactical events. They're deeply interconnected challenges. Moving to Section 2, let's examine the Levant front, focusing on the tactical and strategic realities in Gaza and Lebanon. Starting in Gaza, intelligence sources assess with medium to high confidence that Hamas is highly unlikely to voluntarily disarm anytime soon. Open source sentiment and our analysts strongly agree that despite the ongoing talks in Cairo, Hamas is essentially using ceasefire negotiations for political survival. They seem to be bargaining over weapon restrictions rather than committing to an outright surrender or any kind of disarmament framework. Just to the north, in southern Lebanon, things remain highly volatile. As of mid-June, Hezbollah and advancing Israeli forces are locked in an intense deterrence competition. Even with previous conditional ceasefire agreements brokered in Washington, the hostilities are ongoing. Israeli forces have issued broad evacuation warnings for villages south of the Litani River, and Hezbollah fighters have recently engaged Israeli troops advancing near Majalzoon. The threshold for further escalation right here is incredibly low. Let's shift gears to Section 3, the maritime fronts, specifically looking at the economic and security choke points in Yemen and Hormuz. Sweeping south and east from the Levant, we hit two of the world's absolutely most critical maritime choke points. At the Bab al-Mandeb Strait off the coast of Yemen, intelligence shows an elevated, upward-trending threat to U.S. and international shipping. Houthi forces have declared Israeli-linked ships as legitimate targets, renewing their pressure along the Red Sea coast. Meanwhile, over at the highly contested Strait of Hormuz, military and diplomatic pressures are basically reaching a boiling point. Now, there's a fascinating, volatile duality happening at Hormuz right now. On one side, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has officially declared the strait completely closed to transit. They've issued public warnings to all vessels to assert their strategic leverage. But on the flip side, the U.S. administration, led by President Donald Trump, is anticipating the imminent signing of a U.S. Iran peace deal slated for mid-June. They claim this deal will immediately reopen the strait. So we're seeing a stark contrast between military brinksmanship and diplomatic optimism. Let's move to Section 4, Global Impacts and Perspectives, looking at the ripples spreading far beyond the region itself. These events have profound, cascading impacts at every level. Locally, we're seeing tragic consequences, severe civilian displacement in southern Lebanon and Gaza, along with heightened risks for coastal communities in the Gulf. Nationally, state actors are locking horns. Iran is asserting sovereignty and leverage, while the U.S. and Israel prioritize military deterrence. And internationally, the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz injects massive volatility into global energy markets, directly threatening the worldwide supply chains that rely on the steady flow of petroleum and natural gas. To put the human and economic cost into perspective, just look at the data from the International Maritime Organization. They've reported 46 commercial shipping incidents in the region this year alone. Tragically, that has resulted in 14 seafarer deaths. It's a sobering statistic, and it really highlights exactly why securing these transit corridors is a top priority for the international community. So, who are the key decision makers driving all this? The U.S. is balancing military readiness with a strong push for a diplomatic peace deal. Iran's IRGC is focused on asserting control over key waterways for that strategic leverage we talked about. The Israeli government remains committed to neutralizing proxy threats to ensure their national security, and Hamas is strictly focused on maintaining operational control and political survival within Gaza. It's a complex, multi-layered puzzle. Next up, Section 5, Open Source Sentiment Analysis. Let's see how the public on X is perceiving all of this. When we dive into the open source data, it reveals a highly polarized, anxious public. Roughly 40% of users are expressing deep alarm and urgent fears of regional escalation, especially around the Strait of Hormuz. 30% are focused on pro-Israel security measures, framing Iran as the main actor to counter. 20% are highly critical of Israeli military operations and the resulting humanitarian toll. Interestingly, only a very small 10% are holding on to cautious diplomatic hope for that anticipated U.S. Iran peace deal. Finally, Section 6, our near-term outlook and actions. Let's cover what you need to watch for in the days ahead. Based on the intelligence, there are 3 key things you should be monitoring right now. Number 1, track the progress of the scheduled mid-June U.S. Iran diplomatic talks in Islamabad. The success or failure there will dictate the immediate future of the Strait of Hormuz. Number 2, watch for any shift from rhetoric to actual action regarding Houthi maritime escalation in the Red Sea. And number 3, keep an eye on those low-level conflict spikes between Hezbollah and Israel. Like we said earlier, the threshold for broader escalation there remains perilously low. Which brings us to the ultimate question we need to consider as we watch the news unfold this week. Will these upcoming diplomatic efforts successfully outpace the dangerous momentum of a multi-front escalation? Thank you for joining me for this early morning's Stylo News Intelligence Update. We've really only scratched the surface of these complex dynamics today. To explore these vital issues further and to hear a deep dive into 2 weeks of events shaping this region, make sure to listen to our full morning podcast on your favorite channel or just by clicking the link provided in this post. And if you value clear, fact-driven analysis, be sure to subscribe and visit stylonews.com. That's where you can get your AI-powered open-source news on demand, keeping you informed and ahead of the curve. I'm your host, wishing you a highly informed and focused day.